The headlines right now are painting a picture of a brilliant geopolitical checkmate. China just terminated all soybean orders with Brazil. Beijing punishes Brazil for 79% price hike. China redirects 1.3 million tons of soybeans to Argentina. At first glance, this looks like a masterful stroke by Beijing. They were being taken advantage of by Brazil, who was leveraging a 79% price increase. So China punished them. And within 48 hours, they seemingly found a perfect replacement. The deal looks flawless on paper. Argentina, the world's third largest soybean producer, just temporarily announced it was cutting its export tax to 0%. This move suddenly made Argentine soybeans $100 to $150 per ton cheaper than American beans. China gets exactly what it wants: a new cheap supply of soybeans and a powerful weapon to punish Brazil. It's a perfect solution. But here is what the headlines are not telling you. As an investigative journalist, my job is to find the story behind the story. And when a deal looks this good, this fast, it's almost always a trap. China didn't just buy 1.3 million tons of soybeans. They just bought 1.3 million tons of risk. Today, we are going to investigate the Argentina Time Bomb. We are going to decode the massive, fact-checked economic and logistical risks that no one is discussing. This is the plus 130% value that the original report completely missed. And I will show you why this perfect solution is, in fact, a desperate gamble, one that exposes a fatal weakness in China's entire global strategy. Section 1.2, the prelude, Brazil's failed gamble. To understand why China took this risk, we have to understand the prelude, Brazil's 79% gamble. For years, especially after the US-China trade war, Brazil stepped in to replace the American farmer. They became, as the original report called it, China's giant money printing machine. They were shipping 70 million tons, 80 million tons. They were the undisputed king of the market. And they let it get to their heads. They started to believe they were irreplaceable, so they gambled. They began aggressively raising prices from $530 per ton to $580, and finally to a staggering $650 per ton, a 79% price hike. They believed China had no other choice. They were wrong. Beijing called their bluff. Major Chinese importers like COFCO and Ehai Carry were ordered to suspend all new soybean purchases from Brazil. Effective immediately, this move sent a shockwave through the Brazilian economy and left Beijing scrambling for an alternative. They needed a new supplier, and they needed one fast. And that's when they saw an opportunity, a desperate, temporary, and incredibly risky opportunity. Section 1.3, the 72-hour window. China's move was lightning fast, because it had to be. On September 22, 2025, the government of Argentina, in a desperate move of its own, did something radical. It announced a temporary decree. It was slashing its 26% export tax on soybeans all the way down to 0%. This was a fire sale, a national-level attempt to get hard currency, US dollars, into its failing economy. But here is the critical detail, fact-checked from sources like Ucragro-Consult, that 0% tax window was insanely narrow. Just 3 days later, on September 25th, the Argentine government announced it was restoring the tax. Why? Because the $7 billion quota they wanted to fill was already met. The 1.3 million tons of soybeans that China just bought, that massive deal that is shaking up the global market, it was secured inside that frantic 72-hour trading storm. This was not a stable, long-term supply chain strategy. This was an opportunistic smash and grab. It was a deal made possible only by the mutual desperation of both the buyer and the seller. The Argentina Time Bomb. This is where our investigation begins. The headlines stop at China got a 0% tax deal. We ask the question, why was Argentina offering a 0% tax deal in the first place? Because China just walked into a minefield of risk. Section 2.1, risk number 1, the economic tightrope. The first and most obvious risk is the Argentine economy itself. My initial outline for this video assumed they were in hyperinflation, 150%, 200%. But the real data, which we fact-checked with Argentina's central bank and the IMF, is even more fascinating. Argentina's inflation has actually slowed down. It has fallen from a catastrophic 117.8% in 2024 to a still crushing 33.6% as of August 2025. But this isn't a recovery. It's a patient on life support. This fragile stability was achieved through brutal shock therapy austerity policies under the new administration. The economy is stable, but it is unbelievably fragile. That 0% tax window, that 3-day fire sale, was not an act of strength. It was an act of desperation. A move to suck in $7 billion in US dollars to keep this fragile stability from collapsing. China just bet its national food security on an economy that is walking on a tightrope over a canyon. It's a bet on a partner that is just one bad inflation report away from total chaos. Section 2.2, risk number 2, the logistical nightmare. This is the plus 30% value that the original report and all the headlines are completely ignored. Even if the contract is signed, even if the economy holds for 30 days, getting 1.3 million tons of soybeans out of Argentina is a logistical nightmare. Here's why. The United States has the Mississippi River. Brazil has modern deep-water ports. Argentina, on the other hand, ships over 80% of its agricultural goods, including these soybeans, out of river ports, primarily on the Paraná River. And we fact-check this. According to the Maritime Executive and Maritime Risk Assessor, North Standard, the Paraná River is in the middle of a historic drought. Right now, as of October 2025, the water level is at a 10-year low. What does this mean for a farmer in Iowa or a trader in Shanghai? It means high grounding risk. It means the massive Panamax ships, the workhorses of global trade, cannot be fully loaded. According to the Rosario Exchange, ships are being forced to light load. They must sail with 3,000 to 4,000 fewer tons of grain per ship just to avoid getting stuck in the mud. This isn't a minor inconvenience. It means more ships. It means more time. It means more cost. It means China's cheap soybeans just got very, very expensive. This is the hidden risk, the physical, logistical time bomb, sitting right under their new perfect deal. Section 2.3. Risk number 3, the political powder keg. And finally, there is the most obvious risk of all, political instability. As we just saw with the 72-hour tax window, policy in Argentina can change overnight. A contract there is not a contract. It is a temporary suggestion, a new decree, a port workers' strike, a snap election. Any one of these things could halt exports for weeks. To put this in perspective for you, signing a long-term commodities deal with Argentina is like signing a 30-year mortgage with a bank that reserves the right to change your interest rate daily without notice. Would you ever sign that deal? That is precisely the solution China just gambled on. So let's recap this perfect deal. China has avoided Brazil's 79% price hike, only to sign a 3-day, desperation-fueled contract with an economically fragile partner who is battling 33.6% inflation and whose main export route is literally drying up. This was not a smart move. This was a trap. China's real motive. Section 3.1, decoding the real tactic. This brings us to the final, most important question. Why would Beijing, a government famous for being risk-averse, intentionally walk into this obvious trap? The answer is the core of our thesis today. They know all of this. They know the 3-day window. They know the river is dry. They know the economy is fragile. The Argentina deal was never a long-term strategy. It was a short-term tactic. Beijing didn't need the 1.3 million tons of soybeans from Argentina. They needed the announcement of the 1.3 million tons of soybeans. This entire move is a piece of psychological theater. It is a calculated high-risk gambit designed to create a price war. China is using Argentina as a pawn to send a message. Section 3.2, the two-front war. This tactic is designed to fight a war on two fronts. Front number one, Brazil. The announcement of a 0% tax deal, even a temporary one, is a direct threat to Brazilian exporters. It's a warning shot. It's designed to scare them into dropping that 79% price hike immediately. It's Beijing saying, "We will light our money on fire in Argentina before we pay your price." Front number two, the United States. This is the most critical part. This move is a direct message to American farmers and American negotiators. And this message, this psychological gambit, was timed perfectly. Section 3.3, the real-time urgency. Because this isn't just a random week in October, this is not happening in a vacuum. As we speak, today, October 30th, 2025, President Trump and President Xi are holding a bilateral meeting. We have confirmed this. The meeting is happening right now on the sidelines of the APEC summit in South Korea. This is not a coincidence. This is geopolitical hardball. China is using this high-risk Argentina card at the negotiating table today. The message to the United States is cold and clear. We see you have soybeans in storage. Site 1142. We see you want to sell them. Site 1203. But we just found a new supplier at 0% tax. You want to sell your inventory? Give us a better price. Give us a cheaper price. China is using the threat of this unstable, high-risk deal to strong-arm both of its other suppliers, Brazil and the U.S., into a race to the bottom. Section 3.4, Conclusion and Resonance. In the end, China's pivot to Argentina was not a smart move. It wasn't a solution. It was a desperate move. And it exposes the fatal weakness in China's entire supply chain. That weakness is dependency. They are 100% dependent on the outside world for their soybeans, and they are running out of stable partners. They are now forced to make high-risk, 72-hour gambles on failing economies and drying rivers, all in a desperate attempt to manipulate the market. The Argentina trap isn't just a trap for China. It's the trap they are using to try and control the world's food supply. But it is a trap built on a foundation of crumbling economic sand. And the instability of this 0% tax deal is just the beginning. To understand the real economic collapse happening in Buenos Aires that makes this deal a ticking time bomb, be sure to watch our next video. Argentina's economic crisis, the truth about 33% inflation and the drying rivers. This move, this whole situation, reveals the fatal weakness in China's supply chain. So the question is this desperate gamble on Argentina a sign of China's strength? Or is it the first sign that they are finally running out of options? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.